where you can browse all you want for free.
Apu, why do you still talk like that?
Alright, so you may be wondering why I've decided to start this review of a cyberpunk dystopian series with a janky Simpsons fan animation, and to that I have two answers. One, it's really funny, so I wanted to show it to you, and two, the guy in this video, Adi Shankar, is actually, surprisingly, not just a real-life, somehow less stylish ripoff of Matthew Patel from Scott Pilgrim, but also the showrunner for the series I'm about to discuss. So, yeah, you already know we're in for some real quality today, fellas. But to be genuine for a moment, from what I've seen, Shankar does have a decent track record with the works he's produced, having been the showrunner for Netflix's Castlevania series that I watched a whole 4 episodes of 5 years ago, and as someone who's never played a Castlevania game, 14-year-old me thought it was pretty decent. I had no frame of reference to judge how it worked on an adaptation level whatsoever, but as a disconnected piece of media, I got enjoyment out of it and thought it stood on its own as entertaining. A compliment I couldn't really give to his new series, Captain Laserhawk, a Blood Dragon remix, which incorporates several Ubisoft properties into its own mythos to tell an original story featuring them. Now, like Castlevania, I'd never so much as heard of a character called Captain Laserhawk before, nor had I ever played any major Ubisoft games, unless you want to count the 2008 classic Bakugan Battle Brawlers for the Nintendo Wii, in which case I am a certified expert. However, I did know that Blood Dragon was the subtitle for an expansion of Far Cry 3. So, in preparation for a mostly blind watch-through of the series, I decided to be a bit more knowledgeable going in by watching someone else explain it to me, seeing as I would spend the $4 needed to play it myself, but I'm a little too lazy, busy. No, lazy, so that would have to do. However, it turns out that those 2 precious hours of my life spent looking at someone else's research was for nothing, since Laserhawk has virtually nothing to do with Far Cry Bob Saget beyond the main protagonist being a cyborg commando and featuring cyberpunk elements. Aside from that, the characters aren't the same, the setting isn't the same, the story, the tone, the fictional time period it's set in. Honestly, there are so many differences, it's basically unrelated, save for those few artificial aspects. So, in turn, that does raise the question, why is this series called a Blood Dragon remix to begin with? Well, according to Mr. Indian Emo Pirate Boy over here, it's called that because the series is based on the vibe of Far Cry not having it and its aesthetic, which, to be frank, is the stupidest explanation for a title I've ever heard. What does it take for something to be considered a vibe? How far can you stretch that vague definition? If I want to get some attention on my shitty sci-fi movie, can I just say, "Oh hey guys, this is Galactic Alien Battle, a Star Wars remix. My main guy wears white and has blonde hair, so he's basically Luke Skywalker. They're so similar." No, that's not how that works, asshole. Comparing yourself to another franchise isn't as simple as plastering a label on something, giving it a few bogus similarities, and using its clout to bring attention to your generic-ass property. Oh no, wait. Oh god, that's what this show is, isn't it? I mean, the whole reason I heard about it in the first place was from people sharing clips of Rayman, a beloved platforming icon, snorting coke and eating sushi off a naked cowgirl's ass cheeks, so shit, they got me. I didn't even have a strong connection to any of these games, but the way they were implemented was enough for social media to spread it to me, and enough to make me watch it, so, well played, Shankar. You got me to watch your officially produced wannabe cyberpunk Edgerunners fanfic. Good job. You must have gone through a whole lot of effort to set this trap up, so for the next however many minutes I've got, I'm gonna be repaying that trickery by absolutely eviscerating this mediocre series for the jumbled mess of underutilized ideas it is. And I already know people are gonna be in the comments saying, actually, Laserhawk was announced a year before Edgerunners, so there's no way it could be a ripoff. And you know what? You're absolutely right. I totally agree with you. Captain Laserhawk isn't a ripoff of Edgerunners by any stretch. I just think that, coincidentally, Laserhawk shares many of the same elements as Edgerunners and does them poorly in addition to the few bits of unique content it adds. Therefore, since it came out a year after Edgerunners used these same concepts to much greater effect, it feels like a retread. Boom, the video title is justified, you cannot get mad at me for it. But back on track, what is Cyberpunk Edgerunners? And for that matter, what is Captain Laserhawk: A Blood Dragon Remix? Well, I've mentioned Edgerunners once before on this channel, but for those who don't know, it's a Netflix anime series created as a standalone side story set in the game world of Cyberpunk 2077. The story follows a down-on-his-luck high schooler named David Martinez, who, after the death of his mom, gets military-grade cybernetic enhancements and joins up with a group of mercenaries known as Edgerunners to make ends meet, slowly losing his sanity as the team he comes to revere his family dies off one by one, constantly on the verge of cyberpsychosis caused by the very enhancements they need to survive. It's a one-season miniseries that prides itself on strong characterization, emotional weight, ability to fit in with its source material, striking visuals, an easily self-contained, well-paced narrative, and its developed themes of classism in a society that inevitably warps those who can't afford not to. Captain Laserhawk, on the other hand, is a wholly original story produced by Ubisoft and featuring many of their most well-known characters in a fascist dystopia where our main lead, Dolph Laserhawk, is selected for a secret Suicide Squad-style task force that's trying to stop Laserhawk's former lover turned revolutionary before it's too late. It is a so far 6-episode miniseries that prides itself on mostly weak characterization, no emotional weight, zero relation to any of its source materials, striking visuals, a scattershot, horribly paced story that crams in way too much while ultimately saying nothing interesting, and its incredibly basic themes of racism bad, fascism bad, and revenge bad. Not that saying those things are bad is the problem, I'm just like, the point is, it's basic, it's overambitious, it's bloated, and it doesn't know how to properly get you invested in its characters, save for one. But before I can get to him, you need to know why basically none of the others made me feel jack shit, and by extension, why killing off characters left and right doesn't make your series emotionally gripping. So, first of all, let me paint a picture. There's this character you're introduced to, a girl, and she seems nice. There's definitely nothing wrong with her personality. You could see her adding a special flavor to the show she's in if you really got to know what she was like. Oh, and she's dead. Would you look at that? F's in chat, everybody. This is so emotional. She meant so much to us. Gone too soon. Like, literally, she was on screen for 5 seconds and now she's dead. We didn't even get enough time to remember her name. That's why I didn't bother giving her one. She just came and went like a fart in the wind. Okay, now take that hypothetical character and make it real, because she's the first major character to die in Laserhawk about 15 minutes after we meet her. That's how the average death in Laserhawk goes. We barely know them, they hardly do anything, and when they die or are on the verge of being killed, we suddenly need to act like that means something, since the equally underdeveloped cast are so sad about it. And they wouldn't be sad about something if it didn't matter, would they? Let's just forget that we knew virtually nothing about them and it had no greater narrative purpose beyond shock value. A fictional woman is dead, you monsters! The least you can do is cry over her untimely passing, but unfortunately I'm not gonna be doing that, since I don't feel much of anything about her death one way or another. I mean, I can register on a basic emotional level that innocent people dying is bad, that's kind of a gimme, but you want to talk about personal investments, I am drawing a blank. You gave me nothing of value to take away from it, so why should I feel any other sort of way? That's what makes for one of the biggest differences between Laserhawk and Edgerunners in regards to pacing. Edgerunners, despite its reputation for killing off almost the entire cast, makes every death count by only doing them when A, they're necessary, B, they can make a point, or C, they give a fittingly tragic end to a character we got to see fall. For example, the first major death in Edgerunners is David's mom, and if you weren't paying attention back when I said what the show was about, that death serves as an inciting incident for the entire series, leading to David acquiring his first piece of gear, which belongs to the group he subsequently joins. If her death didn't happen, the story wouldn't have either. It was necessary. But if we want to hit a little closer to the Laserhawk example I brought up a second ago, then let's look at the first major death after David's mom, which happens 3 full episodes later, the longest gap between major deaths in the series. And this is a highly intentional choice so that the audience, like David, can be lulled into a feeling of security as he becomes comfortable in his new life with the Edgerunners. We watch this group become his new family as they mess around and work together, making us believe we'll get to know them over the course of the series, only for it to be broken by a totally out-of-nowhere death, shattering the illusion that his job is all fun and games. It is a perfectly timed kill that reestablishes the tone we saw a glimpse of in episode 1. And who better to do it with than a guy that literally couldn't take anything seriously to save his life? It's so well done, and every death in Edgerunners is like that. They're all unique, they're all memorable, they're all narratively relevant. I could go on and on about how each individual loss was set up and given time to resonate for one reason or another. Now, juxtapose that with Jade, who we meet at the end of episode 1, learn next to nothing about, and then halfway through episode 2, during the team's first mission together, she suddenly dies to the generic bad guy, who also dies a few minutes later after having been introduced in that very same episode. Did her loss offer us a glimpse into how spontaneously someone could die in this world? Nope, not really. At the end of episode 1, they kinda spoiled that opportunity by killing some random guy for comedic effect, so yeah, her death was meaningless. It doesn't represent or mean anything. It just happened so we can understand the stakes. Don't you get it? These guys could die at a moment's notice. Isn't that suspenseful? And the answer is no, it isn't suspenseful since there isn't any tension. And there isn't any tension since we don't know who the fuck she was before she died. Same with the pig guy who was her surrogate uncle but also wanted to bang her, I guess? I don't know. That's the one defining character trait I remember him by. He was angry from not getting any of that non-blood related niece action. He became a virgin with rage after she died, and then he died. If he were a more interesting character, I might have had something more to say or feel, but he did nothing for the story in life or death, so as far as I'm concerned, that's all I need to remember. Actually, what I just said might be too much, seeing as he and the girl were basically interchangeable in my mind due to how forgettable they were. And that's the other big issue with all the character deaths and tragedy in this show. Aside from being totally meaningless on a thematic or storytelling level, they can't hit you on an emotional one either, as its cast is full of a bunch of one-note stereotypes and half-baked concepts. Once again failing where Edgerunners succeeded. Though to be fair, group of misfits brought together by circumstance, slowly coming to love each other, making it all the more heartbreaking when most or all of them die, isn't something that Edgerunners invented. To name a few, Berserk, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and Attack on Titan all played with the same idea at some point to similar levels of emotional effects. And the reason for why is that they, along with Edgerunners, all had one secret in common for getting that kind of response. They got you to care for the team and their friendship before ripping it away. Crazy, I know. It must sound like I'm bullshitting, but it's true. Believe it or not, the Band of the Hawk being sacrificed wouldn't have been as powerful if they met Guts the day before. Sasha's death wouldn't sting so much if we only ever knew her as Potato Girl. And none of what happens to the Ghost and Captain Laserhawk matters because 1, these guys have no chemistry or fun relationships helping endear us to them. 2, they're about as deep as an inflatable kiddie pool, making it hard to sympathize with them individually. And 3, when they do get expanded on or have an arc, quote unquote, they're either not interesting or don't make any sense. Take the main lead of the show, Captain Laserhawk himself. In the beginning, he's the most bog-standard, unoriginal, rogue soldier turned agent of vengeance type you could possibly imagine. He's dark and brooding and doesn't care about anything other than getting payback for being betrayed by his gay lover in the first episode. There are never any deeper implications about him beyond that. He's probably the least interesting person out of the whole cast, getting the least characterization despite having the most screen time. And for about half the season, that's how he stays until killing his lover doesn't fix anything. Whoa! Are you telling me that vengeance is lay bad? No way! Man, that That's such a world-altering revelation, I think it's only right that after Laserhawk understands as much, he becomes a completely different character. Yeah, forget about the shallow badass who only cared about himself and never showed any interest or concern for his teammates. Now that he's seen the light, he's willing to joke around and laugh, and fuck it! He cared about the team all along, and his ideal reality is one where they can live out dead or alive extreme beach volleyball to the end of their days. You see, this whole time he actually felt things when they died. And who wouldn't after forming such a strong connection with them, presumably off-screen? Like, who wouldn't care about their teammate dying after Laserhawk and Jade? Actually, you know what? I'm not even gonna do that. You already know where this is going. Laserhawk never had any substantive interactions with any of the ghosts before they died. So the fact that his ideal reality includes them, his ex-boyfriend, and no one else is so out of left field, it's baffling, but also, I get where the writers were coming from with this. After all, we know next to nothing about Laserhawk or the ghosts outside of their time spent going on missions together, so they must have a deep personal trust, right? How else could they find a reason for Laserhawk to go back for the last remaining member during the series climax? Sure, they could have shown an actual friendship or mutual respect built up over the course of the series, but we needed more time for world building and the least compelling love story in existence, so let's just say he's super kind instead. That's enough of a reason to fight a nation's entire army. Wait, no, seriously, guys, you don't understand. He was so nice, you guys. And look, the nice guy in question, Bullfrog, is definitely the most likable of the group. He was pretty much around purely for making funny faces and saying, "Revenge is les bad, mon ami, Eiffel Tower, baguette, les miserables." But he did have moments that gave small insights into his character. It's too bad they all happened away from Laserhawk, since the group was split up for most of the season, so why would they care about each other? I swear, this series does nothing to make the team-to-family dynamic work, yet they want to have all the emotional payoff and resonance as if anyone, including the characters in the story, should give a singular shit. I don't care that Cody or Jade or Paige or Alex died. They were forgettable and dumb. I had to look up their names to make sure that I remembered them correctly. I don't care about learning the leader girl's tragic backstory as a kid brainwashed by society to betray her father. She has no distinguishing character traits beneath that. I don't care that Laserhawk had to kill his lover. I don't care that Bullfrog is gonna be executed. The one character I do care about is Rayman, and he's not a part of the group at all. He's a mascot for the fascist dystopia that genuinely believed its messaging until he slowly saw the truth, realizing how he's been exploited and choosing to act out against it. He's a three-dimensional, tragic, flawed, but not irredeemable puppet of the state who goes through a definitive arc learning to cut the strings loose, think for himself, and take a stand. Really, my only issue with him, aside from how little screen time he gets in comparison to these assholes, is that he's Rayman, and I don't understand why. Or rather, I do understand why, but I don't like the reason. In fact, by virtue of him being the main thing people talk about when they discuss Laserhawk, he's sort of become the representation for what's wrong with him and other Ubisoft mascots being here. It is a gimmick and nothing more. All the video game characters here could be easily replaced with original ones, and it wouldn't make a bit of difference because the show isn't about them. It's an original work that just so happens to have video game characters in it for the sake of recognizability. Do they act like their in-game counterparts? I don't know. Like I said, I haven't played essentially any of these franchises, but as mentioned, I did check out Far Cry Free Blood Dragon, and to go into a little more detail there, it and this series truly are nothing alike in any way. Blood Dragon is a campy, over-the-top, tongue-in-cheek parody of late 80s, early 90s action movies and pop culture with basically nothing serious about it whatsoever. Laserhawk, meanwhile, is mostly played straight as a vengeance story set in a retro-futuristic cyberpunk dystopia. It has occasional elements of comedy, almost entirely reserved to fake advertisements, but at the end of the day, you're supposed to get seriously invested and care about what is happening by the time it's over. Hardly any of the sad satire transferred from the game to here, so all that's left in terms of actual connections to Blood Dragon are the looks and a bunch of out-of-place 90s game pastiches for no particular reason other than this is the Ubisoft show, so we gotta have parts that look like old video games. But did you really? I don't think you did. But then again, what do I know? People might not be talking about any of the non-game related content in Laserhawk due to its total lack of substance, but they are still talking about it nonetheless. And maybe that's what entertainment is missing. Yeah, that's what we need. Content that vaguely references other, better pieces of popular media to cover up for its total mediocrity. I can't wait to see what sort of property does this next. Oh. Never mind, we need to burn this with fire right now.